Member for St. Augustine.
Oh dear. Madam Speaker, there is a technique in cosmetic surgery called liposuction, and it describes the removal of excess fat from under the skin. It is not something that many surgeons recommend, but every year it seems that the Minister of Local Government has no problem with liposuction, because it's, metaphorically speaking, that is what the minister has performed on our regional corporations. Every year, systematically liposuctioning funding from every regional corporation until they are unhealthy and gaunt and unable to perform their core functions. The minister said, he wished he could have sent a PowerPoint presentation. Maybe next time he could save us the trouble, post it on the website. Because much of what was said this year was said last year. We could have just clicked on the link. Last year, the minister said he launched an app to track complaints. This year, he launches another app concerning municipal police. But when he was describing an app that was in the design stage, and then he called the name and I realized it was the same app he described last year. This is another app that is being designed and in testing. Is this app going to use the free Wi-Fi that the government promised to have nationwide, that we are still waiting for? If you continue to announce apps without application, people will begin to think of you as the app man. The minister spoke about a diet of negativity coming from the population. That, Madam Speaker, is a diet of truth, because the review on the performance of local government under the PNM and on the government as a whole is negative, and it was proven in the results of the last local government elections where you lost. You lost. The minister is referring to Macamillion. John Michael Ali Bokas is the councillor for the Marabella West area. And between Sasha Ali, who is the councillor, between Sasha Ali and John Michael Ali Bokas, they beat the PNM in San Fernando West in this local government elections. So when the member speaks about development, and clearly the people, the population do not feel it because they did not vote for you in the last local government elections. You boast about a waterfront. 7 or 8 years now, you acquired the land there, and all we see is the place dig up. Is that your performance? San Fernando West's only complete development in the last 8 years is an expensive car park where they spent $132 million. That is their development. Madam Speaker, it is very clear, after listening to the previous speaker and to the Minister of Finance, that the PNM really does not care about local government. It really is a superficial thing, as far as I see it continues to be. The UNC government has always been very people-focused. Our policy has been to strengthen local government, and our policies have really been centered around improving the lives and the standard of residents in every area. That is our foundation quality of life. You want to know what the PNM's foundation quality of life is? Turn to page 51 of the budget presentation. And the minister said, and I quote, "Madam Speaker, as a foundation for quality of life, we have invested in our road network." End quote right there. Everywhere you go in this country, the road network is in total disrepair. You have landslips, you have potholes, and that is the demonstration, that is the illustration of the PNM's foundation for quality life in Trinidad and Tobago. And it is a very appropriate illustration because that is what we see around us, disrepair and shambles. The only way we as a government can improve Trinidad and Tobago is by understanding what the needs of the people are. And that is why I salute the leader of opposition, the Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessar, for having multiple nationwide consultations throughout the country. And you know what that did? It allowed every one of us who are elected members of Parliament and even those in the Senate to listen to the opinions of residents, members of the public, stakeholder organizations, unions, business chambers, get their written submissions. I heard members on the opposite side loosely quoting unions, loosely quoting business chambers. You know, the thing is, we have thing in writing over here. We deal with substance, not hype. So when we as parliamentarians speak in this debate on the opposition side, we speak representing the voice of the people who elected us. Has the PNM held any consultations with the public? You are spending taxpayers' dollars, billions of it. Have you consulted with the public as to what it needs? You continue to make decisions in a bubble. During the recent local government campaign, the UNC spoke about improving communities. And rather than understand how we could make communities safer, how we could create employment, the PNM chastised the UNC for running a national campaign, speaking about national issues. Because the most burning issues that the people had, which were crime and unemployment and safety and so on, were issues that they felt local government did not have the power to deal with. The UNC does not believe that we should shelve local government as something less important. We understand that national objectives and local government and community objectives must tie into each other. That is why we support restarting community comfort patrols in your community to make the country safer. We support our proposal to increase legal gun ownership for the law-abiding citizens in Trinidad and Tobago. When we say stand your ground, it is not only about legal gun owners who shoot and kill a bandit or a person who invades their home. It is about standing in our communities and continuing to make our communities safe in spite of the government failing at their responsibility. We support a nationwide plan to restore and improve street lighting in our communities and take back control of our streets, make our streets safer. We want municipal police to be used in local government to partner with schools and their primary and secondary schools to make schools safer. The PNM promised to expand the municipal police by putting 1,000 additional police officers in every regional corporation. The minister comes to boast about 700 new municipal police officers, the same thing he boasts about last year. But it is not another 700, it's the same 700 he's describing, recycled promises, and he has failed to reach his original promise. We want secure homes. We want citizens to be able to defend their families. We want secure neighborhoods, and local government play a role in that. Local government plays a role in securing the economy. You undermine local government to the extent where it is crippled to support your call for property tax. And I say, we in the UNC say now is not the time for property tax. You speak about all these initiatives and you leave local tourism sites totally neglected. You know, there's something called religious tourism in this country, and I just want to take a moment to mention. You have festivals such as the Sipari Mai, where both Roman Catholics and Hindus participate. You have shaving sites at different watercourses, rivers, and so on, that ought to be developed by local government, provide the amenities and so on. And when you have increased activities in these areas, you will see micro-entrepreneurs emerging. You will see people in the communities coming out, and so local government should be supporting this. What has the minister done towards local economic development, towards local tourism development, towards supporting communities? He has failed to say that in his presentation. The minister, as well as the Minister of Finance, spoke about local government reform. Well, Madam Speaker, if you do not live in Trinidad, you will think that this government is really performing on the top of the game, because the words coming out of their mouth does not match their actions at all, at all, at all. The minister in the budget spoke about executive councils becoming more effective in regional corporations, and the government has yet to proclaim the section of the Act to make executive councils a reality. You have not done that. In fact, in 2021, the law was passed, the miscellaneous provisions on local government reform. And since that, the only section that this government attempted to proclaim was the section to postpone the local government election by creating a 4-year term instead of a 3-year term. And they failed at that because it was challenged and struck down in court. They have not proclaimed any section of the Act after that. They have not presented to the regional corporations a plan of action to make the reform a reality. And you know, exactly what they are doing now is exactly what has happened with the procurement legislation. The minister spoke a bit about regional corporations, and I take umbrage to the minister blaming regional corporations. And I felt that he was bringing these corporations into disrepute. When he spoke about 0% performance, I challenge the minister. Name the corporation that has performed at 0%. There is not a single regional corporation that did 0 projects. You may have a percentage of projects incomplete, but a lot of times the regional corporations, you know what their challenge is? When they commit funding to a project, they have to wait for the Minister of Local Government to confirm the availability of funding before they award a contract. To do so will be improper in terms of financial practices. How many corporations have been awaiting releases for months? I have numbers here, and I am willing to share. And as time passes, I will continue to share this information, because I feel that the minister is either misinformed himself or misleading the population when he tries to throw the blame on the regional corporations. We have seen a number of repeated promises year after year. The minister spoke about the local app, the 1,400 municipal police hired across regional corporations. Madam Speaker, previously in my presentation, I said the minister promised 1,000 municipal police per regional corporation. I just want to correct that. It was 100. 100. So it's a total of 1,400 municipal police officers hired across 14 regional corporations. That was promised since 2015. It was repeated in the 2016 local government election, again in 2019, again in 2023, and to date, promises never materialize. Madam Speaker, the Minister of Finance and the Budget spoke about the executive councils. I just want to remind the government that when you had elections on the 14th of August, the councillors were elected under certain terms and conditions. They were elected as part-time representatives because that is what they are considered now. Within the 4-year term, it would be ill-advised for the government to change the councillors' terms and conditions from part-time to full-time. It would mean that this government was going to put our councillors in a position where they have to either resign from their job. We have councillors who may be teachers, who may be public servants, who are business owners, attorneys at law, on both sides of the political divide, both PNM and UNC. They would have to resign, stop their professional practice if they are an attorney at law or an engineer, for example, in order to be a full-time councillor under the new law if that is proclaimed. Or they can resign as a councillor and trigger a by-election. Why would you want to operate with such chaos? Do the thing properly, proclaim the law, and put things in place before you go about boasting and thumping your chest. Madam Speaker, in the previous budgets, in the previous elections, we were promised secondary road rehabilitation. 200 million went from, it started with 100 million from Ministry of Local Government. They gave them an additional $100 million. All of us were excited because the roads are in a terrible condition. Apparently, they felt that maybe they felt the Minister of Local Government wasn't performing, since nothing was done with that special roads rehabilitation special purpose company. They moved it to the Ministry of Works, and again, we have not seen the result of $200 million allocated for roads, and all the roads in Trinidad and Tobago are either bad, worse, or worser. Madam Speaker, we speak about flooding, poor drainage, potholes. That is now the order of the day. The minister spoke about garbage collection, and it called, a very high price in terms of the number of dollars spent for collection and disposal of garbage. Garbage collection and sanitation is one of the areas that this government and this minister has liposuctioned money out of every year. They have forced the regional corporations now to reduce the number of days that they can collect garbage. And you know what is happening? I am on the ground. We are out there. We are seeing it. You have, because the trucks are not servicing the area, mini dumps being created, dumping sites where garbage is starting to pile up, and regional corporations are now forced to get equipment, trucks and backhoes and so on, to go and clean up those mini dumps. And it is because the truck service for the house-to-house collection of household garbage as well as bulk waste is not what it used to be. Right now, within the Tunapuna region, throughout St. Augustine constituent and in some other areas, the chairman of the regional corporation, Josiah Austin, recently became the chairman, is also aware because his district is also affected, where in a number of areas the garbage collection is really off whack. And it is because you have liposuctioned the money out of the votes to deal with garbage collection. You have been dismantling local government. When I hear about an app here and an app there and everywhere, app, Madam Speaker, we hear about these things as though, all is going well and we now want to streamline it and make it digital. But the truth is that the government's handling of the Ministry of Local Government as well as the state enterprises related to local government has raised serious concerns. So, for example, the Community Improvement Services Limited, CISL, which was closed in 2017 under this PNM government, received a sufficient budget of $60 million in the fiscal year 2022. Similarly, the Public Service Academy for Excellence Limited, the PSAEL, was moved to the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, and now with a new mandate that is really creating some confusion and inefficiencies in its operations. This brings us to the issues regarding CPEP. It really is unacceptable, Madam Speaker, that for the period 2016 and 2021, CPEP has not submitted any audited financial statements. And particularly in an environment where there have been accusations or allegations that very close relatives of senior government officials have received contracts from CPEP. And we had our very own Senator Wade Mark commenting on that situation. And he said, and I quote, "This is totally indefensible. It is inexcusable and it is intolerable." He said, "I think CPEP has now gone rogue. You have spent close to $1.5 billion from 2015 to 2021, and you have to spend another close to $300 million or thereabouts in 2020-2023. And what we have on the ground is a reduction in areas being serviced by CPEP under the PNM compared to what obtained under the UNC-led government. You have many areas where critical maintenance of the community cannot take place. When we have a flood, we do make requests and the CPEP would come, but really, if we have the maintenance before, we could prevent the flooding. So where is the $1.5 million that CPEP has utilized in this time? The government has come with numerous false achievements. One I have spoken about before is the superficial name change to create the borough of Diego Martin and the borough of Siparia. Madam Speaker, do you know that not a single cent was given in this budget to transform Siparia or Diego Martin into borough status? I recall the former chairman of the Siparia Regional Corporation, Mr. Dinesh Sankar Singh, estimated what the cost of just the name change alone would be to the corporation. He spoke about the need to change signage on vehicles, signage on streets, the signage on the facilities, the stationery, and so on. And he said it was, I can't remember the exact figure, but I know it was over $1 million. And that was only for the name change. But have you seen a developmental plan, something substantive that would transform these regions into boroughs? I thought that this would have been the ideal time for the minister to lay out some sort of plan to tell us that, you know, when we said it was a superficial name change, that we were somehow wrong. I was hoping to be wrong. And we have not seen any sort of substantive plan being put forward in terms of delivery of goods and services for these areas to match the name change. When the PNM came into office in 2015, Madam Speaker, I'm just remembering, they fired hundreds of litter prevention wardens that was hired under the UNC government. Fired them, they were protesting by Kent House, local government headquarters. And now the minister comes to speak about garbage pile-up. After you fired the litter wardens, the minister is speaking about creating jobs. Tell us how many jobs you vacated. Tell us how many people you fired from 2015 to now because they were hired under the UNC government for plain political victimization. Tell us that first before you tell us how many temporary jobs you are creating by these contracts and so on that are seasonal. Madam Speaker, the pain and suffering of the results of the incompetence of the minister is apparent to every one of us. Because when our citizens face flooding that devastates areas like Bamboo and Woodland, damaging houses, vehicles, infrastructure, in my own constituency, I've been pleading for flood relief grants. The Minister of Social Development and Family Services is in the chamber, and I have had to be, over the last year, in contact with her on numerous occasions. But the truth is that $10,000 maximum, it's often less than that, compensation that is given to flood victims, it is not enough. You know what the people want, the flood victims want? They want the flooding to stop. They want the government to put an end to the needless suffering of flooding year after year. Families have lost their homes, their livelihoods, because of inadequate drainage systems. And you know what? The Minister of Works has an allocation, which I know my colleagues who shadow that portfolio will delve into. But I just want to mention the Minister of Works had about $34 million to spend on drainage and flood reduction, and he spent $3 million. People of Trinidad and Tobago have to hear over and over about it have money. Madam Speaker, under the People's Partnership Government, a lot of our achievements didn't cost much in terms of dollars and cents. What it took was dedication. We had training, we had the provision of state offices for the first time and secretarial staff for every councillor. You know what you have now? Councillors being evicted from their offices. You have a challenge where councillors are being told that their landlord, who gets $2,500 in rent, has to be registered with the procurement regulator. You have workers being told that they can't pay them traveling allowances or worker allowances and so on for their tools. You have workers who cannot get proper safety equipment to work. That is what you have now. We had the devolution of authority and resources within national policy guidelines to tie in local government performance to the central government's objectives. We had community development in housing, social welfare, sports, planning, and the environment. We had equitable financial allocations to all regions. Madam Speaker, I heard the minister trying to dispute the accusation of discrimination by region, geographic discrimination. I want to ask the minister to just do an analysis of the population of the UNC-controlled regional corporations and the PNM-controlled corporations. You'll find that it's very close, about 49 to 51%. And I want you to compare the total funding that goes to regional corporations under UNC control and under PNM control. I'm giving you a little homework. I would like you to come back. And maybe you have to come back and admit your mistake, but at least you could correct it. UNC corporations are grossly underfunded under this PNM government. That is political discrimination. Madam Speaker, the minister speaks about jobs created. A lot of the jobs he described are jobs where you have contractors doing work, construction, box drains, and other projects. Those jobs really are not permanent jobs. You don't have job security. You don't have continuity. And what we need is security of jobs in this country. So boasting about these jobs after you fired thousands of people really, to me, makes no sense. The minister spoke about the training of CERT volunteers. CERT is the Community Emergency Response Teams. The training of CERT volunteers is nothing new. The People's Partnership Government trained hundreds of CERT volunteers. Madam Speaker, we also effectively integrated them into disaster response. I am a certified CERT volunteer, and I thank God for that, because in the time of disaster, we did not see the Ministry of Local Government or any other agency out there with us. We had no help. We had no shelters, and to date, we still have no shelters. We had no emergency response. And thanks to our training, we were able to get resources from volunteers, get assistance from outside, and in some cases, make up our own thing to go out there and literally save lives. There were people who could not come out of their homes who needed medication. We couldn't get any help from any ministry. So when the assessment for flood damaged persons takes place and people wait for over 9 months for flood compensation, by that time they get more flood, you know. Recently there was a fire in St. Augustine constituency, and the Tunapuna Piako Disaster Management Unit was contacted. As we always do, we contact them for assistance. And it is my belief that the Disaster Management Unit of the Tunapuna region does not have the resources to deal with that entire region. I am affected because I represent St. Augustine constituency, which falls wholly in Tunapuna region. Not because I am a former chairman and because we function very efficiently, but because, Madam Speaker, it is a bit falling apart. The people they are politically appointed, they may not want to say, but they really are not getting the resources that is required. I am amazed, Madam Speaker, when I hear the minister speak about regional corporations and public procurement and what he identified as a hindrance. Whose fault is that? Let me elaborate. The Ministry of Local Government and every state agency had sufficient time between the Public Procurement Act being passed and the proclamation that made it effective. During that time, it is the responsibility of each state agency to set up their procurement units and put the administrative measures in place to be compliant with the law whenever it is proclaimed. Did the minister set up procurement units? No. Did the minister appoint procurement officers in every regional corporation? No. Did the minister appoint clerical staff in every regional corporation? No. Did the minister put IT support? No. Did the minister engage the public contractors and suppliers to become registered on the according to the Procurement Act and become a procurement regulator? You know when they started to do it? After the act was proclaimed. And the Prime Minister, I remember, in this Parliament, gave a statement indicating that CEOs, or they will designate an appropriate person in the regional corporation to act as a procurement officer, because the Act provides for a person to be designated as a procurement officer within the state enterprise. So that is what they did after the fact. And due to the poor leadership and poor management and incompetence, which squarely falls on the shoulders of the Minister of Local Government, that is why regional corporations are in this predicament. And it is the same setup you are heading for when it comes to local government reform if you do not put things in place. So, Madam Speaker, what is the issue with procurement in regional corporations? What happened is that when the section of the Public Procurement Act was proclaimed, the regional corporations were now in a bind because they were told that it would be improper, it would be illegal to, for instance, award a contract to a contractor who is not on the registry and to not follow the guidelines provided for in the Procurement Act. But because they did not have the administrative structure to comply, they had to stop awarding contracts. It meant that even as they went into a period of local government elections where councils were dissolved and so on, the regional corporations could not award contracts to sufficiently spend the monies allocated from the Ministry of Local Government. I think most of them did very well in spite of the failure of the Minister of Local Government. So I say, when you come and you read about who didn't spend money and who couldn't spend money, ask yourself why. Ask yourself who is responsible. And if you take responsibility, maybe things will get a little bit of things will get done. Madam Speaker, I think I've spent enough time on the Minister of Local Government. I really want to move on to the constituency of St. Augustine. Madam Speaker, I was born in Curep, in the heart of St. Augustine constituency. I was a councillor for St. Augustine South for 10 years. St. Augustine is family, St. Augustine is home. And when I speak in this Parliament or in any other place about St. Augustine, I represent with humility, I represent with all my heart. And so I moved to the issues surrounding St. Augustine constituency. It is no secret that St. Augustine was terribly affected by flooding. At the end of November to the first week of December last year, we were, really devastated from Bamboo all the way to St. Augustine South, some areas in Curep and so on. I have sent several letters, email, made public calls, telephone calls to the Minister of Social Development and Family Services. Her office may have gotten fed up sometimes of me calling, sending follow-up emails and so on. One of the challenges we have that it is important for the ministry and the government to address is that when people get flood in December of 2022, September 2023 should not meet them waiting for compensation. The government really failed on that one. And there have been occasions in the past, not only in St. Augustine, but in other areas, where persons affected by natural disasters were addressed and compensated within a shorter space of time. It is clear that the Ministry of Social Welfare has some inefficiencies to address. I was out on the field with the disaster management units. Regional corporations from other areas sent their units. They did the assessment. The assessment was not done by Khadijah Ameen or any constituent or any political organization. They did their assessments, they took photographs, we did everything. We did everything. Madam Speaker, I said before that that $10,000 is not sufficient. When a person gets water to window height in their house or neck height inside their house, trust me, they don't want $10,000 compensation. That is not enough to restore life. And when you have the additional indignity of having to call every minute to beg for the money, I am pleading, let's try to fix whatever led to this long period of time to giving the compensation. But the people of St. Augustine really want the flood to stop. I want to ask the Minister of Works, what is the status of the major project that the government boasted about in the previous budget, the St. Joseph River, the Wayabal River, and so on, that was designed or proposed to stop the flooding in Bamboo, in Valsayn South, in Spring Village, in St. Augustine South. We still have several leaking floodgates that have not been repaired. We have residents who risk their lives going to repair those floodgates to save the village. I want to pay tribute to Mr. Lal and others from Bamboo. Mr. Lal ended up in hospital last year. And I am asking the minister, if you care a little bit self, go and fix the floodgate, please. During the flood relief in Bamboo and St. Augustine and Valsayn and so on, officers of the Ministry of Social, the Ministry of the various disaster units, the municipal police and so on, they were meeting by eye shops in Bamboo. You know why? Bamboo number 2 does not have a community center up to now. There was one years ago, severely dilapidated, pigeon infested and so on. I want to say special thanks to Mr. Ryan Rajkumar, the owner of iShops, who made his space available because of the failure of the government. I am highlighting this need for construction of a community center in Bamboo number 2, and the same applies for the Spring Village Community Center in Calbu Street, which is due for refurbishment. Both of these areas are within or close to flood-prone areas, and they will benefit the community not only for community events and community development, but in time of a disaster, these can be the official shelter. So I am pleading for the community center in Bamboo number 2 and Spring Village to be renovated. These communities in St. Augustine suffer flooding, and the Ministry of Drainage and Irrigation. Madam Speaker, I called a number earlier in my contribution, and I have it written here now. I just want to say, to correct the record. $24 million was given to the Ministry of Works, Drainage and Irrigation for major river cleaning, flood mitigation, pumps and floodgates. You know how much they spent? $3.5 million in the last budget. That is what they spent. Total failure at the Minister of Works while people get flood. The people of this St. Augustine constituency, though, continue to inspire me to continue to fight. In some areas, it's considered at risk. You know, you have this new phrase, at-risk areas. When you call an area at risk, it is really because the Minister of National Security has failed the citizens in that area. That is what it is. In Oropun Gardens, Madam Speaker, through community partnership, the Oropun Gardens has seen a decrease in violent crimes, housebreaking, and criminal activities. They used to average 6 homicides, 6 murders per year. They are now down to 1. They now are solving more of the crimes that take place in the community. The Oropun Police Youth Club, Mr. Kevin Greenidge, the other NGOs, and they have really come together to try to treat with some of the root causes and make the community better and safer. That is standing your ground, Madam Speaker, in spite of the failure of the Minister of National Security. In order to treat with the root causes of crime, Oropun, like other at-risk areas, such as St. Augustine South, require the provision of opportunities for training, for development, and for employment. We have a community center and a commercial center in Oropun Gardens. There was a sod turning ceremony at the beginning of the year, I believe. We have not seen the start of construction. I am appealing to HDC to at least tell us when construction of these 2 facilities will begin. We want to see the Oropun recreation ground, that really is just an empty space right now, developed. Right now in Oropun, there are thousands of residents, and you know where they vote, Madam Speaker? In a pavilion. They walk across a muddy savanna. People in wheelchairs, you have to lift up the wheelchairs for people to go and vote, because they have no school, they have no community center, they have no commercial center, you have no facility in that community that could be used for a community event. So I am asking the relevant ministries to please pay a particular attention to this. I want the Ministry of the HDC, the ministry responsible for the HDC, that is responsible for the Oropun Gardens area, to consider agriculture initiatives where the spaces within the community can be used to get young people involved in growing food in a more organized way. Many have been doing it on their own, but I am asking for the Ministry of Agriculture to partner with existing farmers, with young people in the area, and with fellow residents, so that we can have, even within an HDC development, agriculture and the ability to feed our own families. There is not sufficient services there are insufficient services in this Oropun area as well. I would like to see maintenance contracts, whether it is through CPEP or HDC, in terms of cutting the grass at the side of the roads and in the public spaces, the collection of garbage. You have piles of garbage, rats, cockroach, snakes. And it's just a daily occurrence because of insufficient garbage collection. I really would like us to beautify the environment with floral plants, parks and benches and so on, so that you will have a greater sense of community pride, but you will also provide employment and opportunities for some of the young people there. Madam Speaker, in St. Augustine South, well, St. Augustine constituency as a whole, there are a few bridges that I have been begging for. I don't know if they're waiting for the bridge to collapse before something is done. Dry River Bridge in Orange Grove Road, Bassey Street Bridge over the Blackman Ravine in Spring Village, Blackman Lane Bridge in Curep, and the Dry River Bridge on the train line. I don't want these bridges to collapse like everything else is collapsing under the government. I am appealing. You recently, you visited, you see the need, you have done estimates. I'm asking you to deliver. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Works recently constructed a bridge on the Golden Grove Road in Aruka, after it collapsed, by the way. And that same road south of the Churchill-Roosevelt Highway falls in St. Augustine constituency. In the area from TT Post to Caribbean Airlines, the road really is in need of being widened. There's no shoulder. In an emergency, you have any incident, there's a traffic pileup. It is a route to the Piarco International Airport, to cargo and so on. There's sufficient land, vacant land there. I'm asking, the airport would have their annual drill, and I'm sure it would have been identified as a weakness. I am asking the Ministry of Works to consider urgently widening that road to make it safer. Madam Speaker, the St. Augustine constituency was once designated under the UNC government as an education city. This was when we had a forward-thinking government led by the Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessar. St. Augustine
Member for St. Augustine, your original speaking time is now spent. You're entitled to 10 more minutes to wind up your presentation if you wish. You may proceed.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, St. Augustine is the home of the University of the West Indies St. Augustine campus. There are several campuses of the University of Trinidad and Tobago, several private tertiary level institutions, and numerous secondary and primary schools. Under the PNM government, even for the basics, the very basics for schools are lacking. This is the third consecutive year that I am pleading for Currep Presbyterian Primary School for the work started under the People's Partnership Government to be completed. Last year, 5 million was allocated. Whatever work that did not allow the classrooms to be utilized. So we are still in the same situation where the children are jam-packed in the old school. The former Currep Junior Sec, which is now St. Joseph Secondary, I have a number of constituents that go there. It falls in the constituency of St. Joseph, but it seems that the member for St. Joseph didn't have time in his presentation to mention that that school has not yet been reopened. It's still overgrown. The Bamboo Early Childhood Center was designed, an area was already allocated. I am asking for the Ministry of Education to consider the Bamboo Early Childhood Center. The Bamboo Settlement No. 2 Government Primary School. Madam Speaker, if you see the condition of this school, it was originally painted white. The condition of the paint and the walls from the moment you walk into that school, I mean, it looks really bad. But that is just a very prominent indication of the minor repairs and so on that is needed. The school is badly in need of painting and major repairs before it gets more dilapidated. I'm also concerned because this thing is either mildew or moss and so on, and the health implications of that for the children. Madam Speaker, there is a school called Tunapuna Boys RC School. It is a little school behind Tunapuna Cemetery, and sometimes I think it is forgotten. That school is in need of some repairs, so I want to ask the Minister of Education and the Minister in the Ministry to consider the possibility of doing some repairs there. The principal will be very happy. We also must consider the possibility of a primary school in Uropun Gardens. I believe land was allocated for that in the development, but I see more and more children, and they are contacting me as the Member of Parliament to ask about PTSD bus services, because their children go to school outside of the area. And really, with so many people living there, I think it is now time for a primary school in Uropun Gardens. Madam Speaker, the UTT Valsain campus, which was formerly the Valsain Teachers College, falls in St. Augustine constituency. That now houses St. George's College, from Barataria. I must declare that St. George's College is my alma mater, one of the best schools in this country. Madam Speaker, for a number of years, St. George's College was temporarily closed because the school collapsed due to the ministries not having the proper maintenance and so on. So the partial collapse of the school, which is located on 6th Avenue in Barataria, has seen the relocation to UTT, Valsain College, which was supposed to be temporary. Since then, the parents have given numerous dates in terms of when the construction will be completed. It has been postponed several times. I am asking the Minister of Education to provide some information in terms of the status of the repairs to the school, the estimated date for completion, and when students can expect to go back to the original St. George's College School. Madam Speaker, a feature of the St. Augustine Education City area disbanded by this government was sustainable solutions to traffic management. In the El Dorado area, the Cora River Bridge which is on the Eastern Main Road in Tacarigua, just before the St. Mary's Children's Home. That Eastern Main Road is the boundary between St. Augustine and Tunapuna. That bridge, that area is a bottleneck. Those areas are densely populated. Dinsley, Tacarigua, Cora, El Dorado, Tunapuna areas. A study was conducted under the People's Partnership Government, identifying solutions. One of the solutions was a bridge over the same Cora River, further upstream, to provide an alternate route. I am asking because I heard the member for Tunapuna referring to the area as an education hub. It is an education hub. But it is your government who disbanded the St. Augustine Education City Committee, which would have supported the needs for this education hub. And so when I heard the member for Tunapuna speaking about a housing development to take place, can't remember if it was for providing houses or providing votes. But the truth is that you have to consider alternative routes. And the government continues to plan and build houses in marginal seats with their own specific aims in mind, not thinking about the supporting infrastructure. And if you're really concerned about the development of Tunapuna and the surrounding areas, you will put an alternative route, put an additional bridge over that Cora River to ease the traffic in that area. I feel so ashamed to know that, when I heard the member for Tunapuna speaking about something he said they were going to open in El Dorado. But the bottom line is, it is this government that closed down the nursing academy in El Dorado. Closed it down. I have no doubt that my colleague who shadows education, I could say minister in future, MP Anita Haynes, will elaborate more on how the government has dismantled education. The member for Tunapuna enlisting projects and saying that every constituency has an equal share. Madam Speaker, that is not true. The member for Laventille East in this parliament told the truth in his contribution because he said that the delivery of government resources is done through the PNM offices. That is the truth, Government resources are surreptitiously distributed by PNM offices through losing candidates who the PNM rejected.
I just ask you to withdraw that particular word and find another way to say that, please.
I presume it's the word surreptitious, so I will rephrase.
And again, when you do that, please don't mention the word. Okay?
Thank you. I will rephrase.
Okay, and while I'm on my legs, I was going to make the announcement after, but I'd like to remind you and all other members, when you're referring to members again, remember, try to distinguish between here and how you speak to them outside. So it will be the MP for Tabaquite.
Certainly, I corrected that, and thank you very much for your guidance. Madam Speaker, the truth is that government resources have been distributed via PNM offices through losing candidates who the population rejected, and that must come to an end. So when the member for Tunapuna mentions projects, I want to remind them that projects awarded by political priority will end up in disaster because rain does not fall by political affiliation. When you build a watercourse to relieve the flooding from the people in Tunapuna, and you drop all the water over the main road, and it abruptly ends there, and you promise a phase 2, you just dumped all the water and continue to flood Back Street, Makoya Road, and Makoya Extension, and so on. Madam Speaker, I hear the government speaking about regularization. I want regularization for residents of Duki Singh Street and Page and so on, former citrus growers' lands in LSA and Bamboo Valsane. Madam Speaker, the issues in the constituency of St. Augustine that the government have failed to address are too numerous for me to articulate in this budget debate. And there are other places where I will continue to vociferously represent the people of St. Augustine and the people of this country, because it is very clear that the PNM is disconnected from reality, disconnected from the people. And they are not even seeing that they lost the local government elections. Thousands of people voted for the UNC over the PNM. They lost seats. The UNC won more local government seats than the PNM did. And the writing is on the wall for them. They have lost Tobago. They have lost Trinidad. Is only the and again remaining. Thank you.